Welcome to Awesome Movie Year, the podcast where we take a look back at an awesome year for movies. I'm Josh Bell, film critic and writer, and I'm joined by my co-host.
I'm Jason Harris, filmmaker, comedian. Where am I going to find a pizza at this hour?
Jason choosing one of the less inflammatory utterances from this movie that we're about to discuss. So in this season of Awesome Movie Year, we're talking about the films of 1971, and we are here at the Oscar Best Picture winner, which is The French Connection from director William Friedkin, the kind of movie I feel like that would not probably win Best Picture now. Although, on the other hand, I feel like we say that with almost every older year about movies that win Best Picture, that things have changed, but definitely grittier, I think, maybe than people might expect from a movie like this that won Best Picture and was also a huge hit at the box office and kind of more morally ambiguous. But this is based loosely on a true story, which was chronicled in the book by Robin Moore about a couple of New York City cops who tracked drug dealers working on what I believe at the time was like the biggest heroin bust of all time, $32 million bust in 1971 dollars, and stars Gene Hackman and Roy Scheider as those police officers.
Yes, David, I got nothing to do today. You've covered it all.
I've just really set up what's going on. I hope you have some other things to offer other than facts.
Josh and I were talking the other day, and I want the Oscars to get better. And I think there has to be some type of referendum on, since the Oscars so white thing, they have expanded the field, but they haven't gotten better. So how do we get more diversity and actually make the award selections better?
Oh, man, I don't know. That's a task beyond my capability to discern. I think in a weird way, like expanding in that way for diversity does help. But part of the problem is that the bigger the organization gets, the harder it is for smaller factions to assert themselves. So everything that wins, and I see this, because I do various awards voting, and being in like a small group, like Jason's favorite group, the Las Vegas Film Critics Society, versus being in a much larger group like the Critics' Choice Association, I know that in that larger group, even if I have 20 or 30 other people who agree with me about some more marginal thing, there's no way it's going to get nominated, and it all just kind of drifts toward the middle.
I don't think they're taking, any more risks or any less risks. I think it's the exact same blandness that it was. It's just a wider variety of blandness at this point in time.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you need is to be more selective in a way in the membership, or not more selective, but have more kind of like blue ribbon committees and select factions or whatever that are really knowledgeable about specific areas. But this is not a topic that I really feel like I'm authoritative on. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on the solution for this, Jason?
I don't have a solution because I think they maybe overcorrected, right? Like, it's like, as we notice every year, we celebrate diversity on Awesome Movie Year every season here, Josh. So we can stand on business, so to speak. But I think there has to be some type of quality, like you're saying, like, how do we choose? Like, is it just like, oh, this is now this country's prestige film or this or that? Like, it just feels like they're picking the same type of films, but in different languages. So I was bored with it before, and I'm bored with it now.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I really pay very little attention to it at this point, and I haven't watched the Oscars in over a decade.
Me neither.
But,
and by the time
is Hamnet the best movie of all time, like the poll quote says on the poster?
mean, that's just some random website that they pulled that from. That's not the Oscars saying that. And whether Hamnet will win an Oscar or not is not a topic for discussion on this podcast.
That's a perfect example, Chloe Zhao, who Nomadland. Do you think anyone's going to remember that in like the great Best Picture winners?
Probably not, but I mean, it's not as bad as some other Best Picture winners from recent
some
years.
that we've talked about.
Some that we've talked about, exactly, and some that I mean, I know we had like our discussion of Birdman, and a lot of people don't agree about that one. But I mean, movies like Crash, you know, which I think is held up often as like one of the worst Best Picture winners of all time. So I mean,
Josh always points that one out. That's why we haven't done that year
It's
yet,
a terrible movie. So
Right,
I feel like
they
we
go-
should talk about the French Connection.
But
though.
no, but getting that back to that, they go very on the nose. And one of the things that are what's good about the French Connection is like that grittiness that, hey, if we're going down the middle, we're going to like really go hard boiled with it. And Friedkin, you know, is on this run starting the year before, probably at least through 1980 of like just mostly great movies. And I think it's a quintessential New York crime film. And you see like, we've covered Le Samurai, you see this, and you see like this lineage of movies copying these things over and over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you wanted, for whatever reason, to compare it to Crash, like there's moral ambiguity here in this film. You know, in this movie, you hear Popeye Doyle, Gene Hackman's character, say all sorts of horrible, racist, misogynistic things. He's a terrible person. And you can draw that connection yourself, that conclusion yourself as you watch the movie. Whereas a movie like Crash would have to have, you know, all these other characters talking about how bad it is that he does this stuff or says this stuff and how he's not an example, you know, for other people or something, because the movie has to hit you over the head with that. And one of the strengths of this movie, which is also, I feel like, a weakness of it, is that this main guy is such a repugnant person. And it's realistic in its depiction of that kind of New York City police officer, but it also gives you less to hang on to and root for as you're watching the movie.
Okay. And don't jump down my throat here, listeners. I'm going to take a devil's advocate point of view just to have don't you start with me either. If I just agree with you on everything, it's a boring podcast.
But you didn't say you were going to disagree with me. You said you were going to take a devil's advocate position.
Well, I'm just saying, you're saying he's a terrible person who says morally repugnant things, which I agree with. He does say morally repugnant things. But one, he's not a dirty cop. He is trying to prevent crime. And two, there's a line that they take out of the movie that I saw in my cut, but I know they've taken it out in other cuts, where Popeye Doyle says, you can't trust an N-word, which is terrible. But then he says, you can't trust anyone. And I think if his point of view, if we had just honed in on the you can't trust anyone, you would have found him less repugnant there, Josh. So.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, the removal of that line, which maybe we'll discuss later, is only very, very recently. So it's absolutely in
and they shouldn't remove it.
And I agree, they shouldn't remove it because it is clearly meant to show you. It's very early in the movie, and it's meant to show you this key aspect of his character, which is that he is a racist. You know.
And, I mean, again, you could argue he's not a racist because he says you can't trust any. Hold on, you're not giving me a chance to.
Okay.
He works with an undercover black cop that they clearly have a friendly relationship with. So, I mean, I'm just saying, if you wanted to make an argument, you could go down that path.
So you're using the I have black friends argument.
Yeah, that's what I do in real life too, right? So I'm just trying to say, like, there's other shades to. Like, do you think he got this Oscar for Best Actor because they were all like, "Oh yeah, look at this good racist stuff there"? That's like the opposite of what the Oscars.
Well, I'm not saying it's a bad acting performance. I'm saying the Popeye Doyle is a bad person. It's a good performance as a terrible person. I mean, there's plenty of people who win Oscars for that.
Oh, sure, Hannibal Lecter's a bad person. I'm Josh, the moral authority on everything. I'm just trying to see where. Maybe it's not as, pardon the phraseology, black and white as you say. So, but I don't know. I can't. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think the movie is trying to give you a sense. I mean, he's really the only character in the movie that has any layers to him. And I do think they're trying to give you that. They're not just like, look at this terrible person. It's like like you said, he is terrible in many, many ways. And I would argue that he's not even really a very good cop, but it does show you his dedication to this particular case, right? And even in the face of his superiors being like, drop it, you know? And so it is meant to be a layered character, but I think ultimately it does come down on, I think the movie comes down on this is a bad person. And I think there's especially things later in the film that give you that sense beyond just the racist aspect. But I certainly come down on that.
No, I mean, obviously, if anyone can say he's a bad cop, it's you, since you did that $35 million heroin bust in your younger days on the force.
No, but
there,
I think the movie is also telling you that he's a bad cop.
Well, I think especially in that last scene,
Yeah.
which where this, we don't have to get into the spoiler right now, but he's so task oriented, he doesn't care who he has to go through to get the job done. But what's so weird about it is, like you said, it's based on Eddie Egan, who is actually really pretty good in this movie as like one of the side cops, and he's like one of the advisors. So Eddie Egan's watching this dude play him and you're calling him like morally repugnant and racist, and Eddie Egan's like, yeah, this is Gene Hackman, it's cool.
Right. No, that to me is the most astounding thing about this movie, that Eddie Egan, as you said, is a consultant on this. He plays a decent sized role as the supervisor of the main two cops and is good as an actor in that role. But the idea that he could watch this movie and be like, yeah, you know what? I'm really, I endorse this portrayal of me. Like,
and he
shows
did.
you
I mean,
how completely oblivious he is to what a horrible person he must be.
Well, there was that whole argument of like, some other cops were pissed because at one point Doyle shoots someone in the back, right? But Friedkin's like, dude, Eddie Egan was here the whole time. I have no doubt that this is how it would have gone down. He didn't protest it, so why are you protesting?
Right. I mean, he's the kind of guy who shoots people in the back, and he's like cool with that portrayal of himself. So this movie was very successful. It grossed $75 million on its budget of just $1.8 million. So a massive hit. It was nominated for 8 Oscars. It did win 5 of those Oscars, including Best Picture. It won Best Director for William Friedkin, Best Actor, as we've said, for Gene Hackman, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best Editing. It was also nominated for Best Supporting Actor for Roy Scheider, who plays Popeye Doyle's partner, for Best Cinematography and Best Sound. It won Best Picture, Director, and Actor at the Golden Globes. So this movie was, one of the other things we talk about with the Oscars are that some people, I don't agree with this, but some people complain like, oh, they give awards to movies that nobody saw. This was definitely one of these years where all these awards went to a movie that was a huge sensation that lots of people saw, that was big pop culture wise. And again, I think not only is this the kind of movie that maybe we wouldn't expect to get an Oscar now, but is the kind of movie that you wouldn't always expect to be a huge hit. I mean, you can compare this to, modern action movies where I feel like they're a lot less inclined to give you that moral ambiguity with the characters and also with the story itself, because regardless of what you think about Popeye Doyle, the story is very unresolved at the end as well.
And I like that aspect of it myself, So,
right.
But I look at this as like, look, I love 70s crime movies. We've gone over this before, and it was funny reading that Peter Boyle turned the role down because he thought it was too violent, and then 2 years later he did The Friends of Eddie Coyle, which is, French Connection light, I would say. But I think this probably set the tone for this and Dirty Harry, same year, right? Those are the two tone setters on crime movies, and like you're saying, morally ambiguous characters. And we talked about this in Dog Day Afternoon. It's not just that they're putting these characters out there. It's a representation or a reflection of what's going on in the world, right? So just look at the art that's going to come out next year, right? Of how many people could just say, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't recall that. Or, I don't have to take any responsibility for anything. Usually at times of, I should say moral ineptitude or just scumbaggery, that's when great art comes out a lot of the time.
One hopes. So critics generally were quite positive about this as well. Roger Greenspun in the New York Times said, "The French Connection is in fact a very good new kind of movie, and that in spite of its being composed of such ancient material as cops and crooks, with thrills and chases and lots of shoot 'em up. The French Connection is a film of almost incredible suspense, and it includes, among a great many chilling delights, the most brilliantly executed chase sequence I have ever seen. But the conditions for the suspense carry with them the potential for failure, not of this particular action, but of all action in the great doomed city that is the film's real subject. From the moment, very early on, when Gene Hackman first pistol whips a black pusher, you know that the world is cursed and that everybody playing out his allotted role is cursed along with it.
Right. So we're taking the stance that it's not just Popeye Doyle, but everyone is a scumbag in this film here.
Oh, yeah, and that's true. I mean, I think Popeye Doyle is merely the most prominent scumbag. And as I said, the only one that you really get any sort of depth on. But yeah, there's no one is good in this movie. There's nobody like worth rooting for in this movie.
You don't think Roy Scheider's character was worth rooting for?
I mean, he's only worth rooting for in the sense that he's not as horrible as Popeye Doyle. But I mean, he doesn't like it's Roy Scheider is great, but it's crazy to me that he was also nominated for an Oscar because he has such a muted presence in this movie.
It's just support to lift up, the
Right.
Popeye character. I mean, the other big note on that review is, and I was thinking about it today, you could still argue that this is the greatest chase scene in film history, right? I made a list of like 6 of them.
Oh, all right.
And we talked about the one in Blues Brothers where John Landis was like, how many cars were crashed into in French Connection? I need to beat that by 1 or whatever. So, and a lot of those crashes in this one were like literal accidents. They were stunt coordination where they were supposed to be near misses, but they crashed into it and they kept going.
Right. Well, and I think that makes it better too, because it shows you even further how reckless Popeye Doyle is.
It's such a unique car chase because it's not a car chasing a car. It's a car chasing a train, but not in like that Mission Impossible type way, right? You're underneath a train platform and you're watching Popeye drive through the streets to make sure he gets to the next stop to apprehend the French killer and drug maven, if you will. So I like it. And I think one of the other things that makes it work so well is it's in such tight confines, right? That's what also helps it. So watch the movie, but definitely watch the car chase.
Yeah, and it was interesting to see because that car chase is now known as one of the greatest, if not the greatest, but it was obviously recognized that way right away. Sometimes things like that are only in retrospect, when people start tallying up all the different kinds of things in various movies and something rises to the top. But this one was definitely acknowledged right away. So Charles Champlin in the Los Angeles Times said, "The French Connection is every bit as entertaining as Bullitt, a slam-bang, plain-spoken, sardonically funny, furiously paced melodrama. But because it has dropped the romance and the starry glamour of Steve McQueen and added a strong sociological concern, The French Connection is even more thought-provoking and reverberating. Superficially, the message is that the detectives live in misery and do their jobs out of a dogged devotion. The top dope peddlers live in opulence and get away or are coddled by the courts. Both messages are persuasive, but watching The French Connection, it is also possible to realize how catastrophically a half-century's attempt to punish narcotics out of existence have failed, and have in fact acted like kerosene on a blaze. The inferences from the movie are all depressing and suggest, among other things, both the cops and the robbers have become a law unto themselves."
It's like that meme, drugs won the war on drugs.
Right.
And it's funny that they reference this in the 70s because the war on drugs wasn't until the 80s, right? So we're just showing how sad and bad at fighting this war on drugs we are. I don't necessarily agree with the idea of like it just showcases the drug dealers as living in opulence and the cops living in squalor or misery, right? Like it's a specific case we're looking at here, right? But you do see some of those low-level pushers and their fronts. And I mean, the cops that we're focused on are the 2 that were running the investigation, not the police commissioner of New York. So I think that's unnecessary. Bullitt, though, however, a good movie. I know you haven't seen it, but
no, I have seen it. It's just been a little while. Yeah,
that is also on my list of best car chases, Josh. That chronologically, that's what I had as the first one.
Yeah, and along with this, that is definitely one of the most famous and the one that gets cited quite often. So, I agree with you, Jason. There's one scene in here where it's very pointedly set up in the contrast where you see the French drug dealers and they're eating in this like super fancy restaurant and Popeye Doyle is standing across the street, like freezing, eating some slice of cold pizza and gulping down this coffee from like a plastic cup. And there's even like a cut directly between his presumably shitty cold coffee and the like fancy espresso that's being poured in this restaurant. But other than that moment, I don't know that that's really a main theme of the movie.
Josh, I have been involved in food writing for over a decade. And during that scene, if you ask me what I would rather have, I would take a slice of pizza and the New York City coffee. over the fancy French food. Probably 99 times out of 100 there.
So you just don't like fancy French food?
No, I like it just fine. But, you're speaking to my heart when you're saying New York slices and everything. So
right.
I like fancy French food, but pizza is my food craving, right? That's like what I would want to eat if desert island food, so to speak, right? Fancy French food, that's like once in a while, celebration thing.
Yeah. Well, I agree that I would take pizza over fancy French food, but we know that my taste in food is not to be trusted. So I'm glad that you feel the same way.
One point about the opulence that I really did like, and I thought was kind of prescient, is that one of the main drug dealers is a French television celebrity, right? And you could see like that idea of using power and celebrity to kind of front different types of crime organizations. Not that anyone like P. Diddy would ever do that, but I'm just saying, like, I thought that was interesting coming from as early as the 70s here.
Right. And they let that guy kind of off the hook because he comes across more as naive than sinister, unlike P. Diddy or whatever. They're using him. And at one point, it's unclear to me whether he even knows that the car is full of drugs, right? They just say, like, can you take this car with you or whatever? Maybe so, or he has some sort of plausible deniability. But I mean, I think part of the point, and, again, we get to the very end of the futility of this, is that he's clearly the one who is the least central to this operation, right? He's far from a mastermind. Even if he knows the car has drugs in it, he's pretty oblivious about the overall operation, but he's the only one who gets substantial prison time at the end.
He got 4 years, right? So, but this is literally, we're at the time of this recording, we're echoing this right now. Look at the Epstein files that were quote unquote released the other day, right? Well, whose name has been redacted more than anybody's, so that it doesn't even exist. And like, I don't think people are accepting it. I sure hope not. But it's like, the most powerful people are always going to find ways to get out of it while stool pigeons take the fall.
Right. And that's absolutely what happens here at the end of the movie with regard to the big French kingpin guy.
But I got to say, I was surprised that he, even as a celebrity, got any, punishments in there. I thought it would have all been like the low level New Yorkers taking the fall.
Right. But those people seem to get off easily. And it's unclear. I mean, it's a fictionalized character. It was unclear to me if he's really like a big French celebrity or he's just like sort of a mid-level, like, hey, this guy does TV and we can trade on that to get our stuff smuggled over. Is he the equivalent of the French, Brad Pitt or Tom Cruise? I think not. I think he's, a much lower level celebrity than that is what it seems like.
There are French celebrities you could have picked there, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean, just to make that analogy clearer, he's no Alain Delon, okay?
Right. And if you listen to this podcast and you don't know who Jean-Paul de Belmondo is, then you haven't been listening to this podcast. Right?
Yeah. So finally, Pauline Kael in the New Yorker was negative, even though she thought it was a well-made film. So she said, and now an extraordinary well-made new thriller gets the audience sky high and keeps it up there. The French Connection, directed by William Friedkin, which is one of the most New York of all the recent New York movies. The movie's suspense is magnified by the sheer pounding abrasiveness of its means. You don't have to be an artist or be original or ingenious to work on the raw nerves of an audience this way. You just have to be smart and brutal. There's nothing in the movie that you enjoy thinking over afterward. Nothing especially clever except the timing of the subway door and umbrella sequence. Every other effect in the movie, even the climactic car versus runaway elevated train chase, is achieved by noise, speed, and brutality. The only thing that this movie believes in is giving the audience jolts, and you can feel the raw, primitive response in the theater. This picture says Popeye is a brutal son of a bitch who gets the dirty job done. So is the picture.
Okay, so that sequence in the train with the umbrella holding the door and everything, that is a direct, I felt, lift from Le Samurai. That sequence where they're chasing Le Samurai down in the train tracks. I thought like this was just almost homaging it almost to a T right there. The rest of it, I disagree completely. You can have a visceral experience that affects you more than just on the surface level. And to just say that car chase was just noise and that's what made it effective is underestimating the technical brilliance of the shot selection, the editing, right? The pacing of the whole thing. That's not an easy sequence to pull off. When I was reading about it, and I think this was the first car chase that did like a low angle POV on the front bumper. So you're seeing the car point of view, but at least from that angle, that was really smart, really clever. Like, I think most people, including myself, who's not won any Oscars, Josh, would have just like, if you're going to POV it, you would do it at kind of eye level with the driver or something along those lines. But that low angle, like, really kind of gave it even more of a scope and showed a lot more difficulty. So I feel like the technical wizardry and mastery, like, is the blueprint for whether it's those zooms or like you're talking about that shot in the French restaurant where like you see him across the street and you zoom in and then you zoom back out. Like, really amazingly, really smart, methodical work there.
Yeah, I don't think she's trying to dismiss the technical difficulty. And I mean, I think what she's saying, in fact, is the opposite, that this is a very technically accomplished film that she feels like is empty provocation or empty thrills, really. And I would disagree, because I think there are so many movies. I mean, as we're just saying, like a movie like this now, you would expect it to be more like that. There's lots of empty thrills, explosions, shootouts or whatever, and wisecracking. That's one thing. There are no funny one-liners in this movie. We don't get anything like that. And so,
did you want that? Did you want him to be during that train? Sorry, I cut you off. Got to catch a train.
No. I think what I'm saying is that I didn't want that. That we would expect that in a movie like this now, and that where all the things that she's saying would be far more valid, where it just exists to jolt the audience or whatever. And I don't think that's what this movie is doing. And in fact, as it goes on, it's doing the opposite. It's frustrating the audience. It's thwarting your natural desire to be like, let's have a big showdown and get the bad guys and, have that kind of vindication for these cops or whatever. Like, we don't get any of that. So I don't think
I mean, maybe I wasn't clear, Josh. I don't think she was knocking the technical aspects of it. I think she was saying that there was no meaning behind it. And I'm saying that there was plenty of meaning and it helped to elevate the film.
Yeah, I think there is meaning. I think maybe there's not enough meaning, but I wouldn't say that that's because it's just empty thrills. I don't think that's what it's aiming for really at all. So, Jason, had you seen this before?
I had seen it, Josh. I think I first started hearing about it in high school, and what I had heard about was the car chase. And I really love that kind of nitty gritty New York action movie. But I hadn't revisited it since then. I don't know if it was high school or college or in my 20s when I first saw it. But anything Friedkin, anything Hackman of this era, like you already pointed out, Roy Scheider, like, just watch all of it. Even if it's not the best, it's still going to be good.
Yeah, this is certainly the heyday for all of those people involved in this film. And I saw this. I actually found on joshbellhateseverything.com my original thoughts when I watched this like 21 years ago and was a little underwhelmed. But I think I liked it a little more this time, but I still think, I mean, that car chase is great. And that sequence that you talk about is a tribute to Le Samurai, the subway sequence where it's sort of this cat and mouse game between Gene Hackman and Fernando Rey, the drug dealer, he's attempting to follow him onto the subway. Those are great. And I, in theory, like the idea of the sort of moral ambiguity of it. I feel like in practice, a lot of this movie is slow and boring, and that kind of drags for me. But it is an interesting film. It's absolutely worth seeing. And I think it's interesting as much for what it's aiming to do as for the actual experience of watching.
I noticed, Josh, when we cover films like this, for you, there needs to be a little more of an emotional investment in the protagonist or somebody. And for me, that's not always the case. And that's just a difference between how we watch it. But that does seem to be a recurring theme in these things.
Yeah, I mean, and I do think that's important. And it's not that I need him to be likable or anybody to be likable here, but I think I just need to be able to care about what happens to these people as people. And I don't here. Popeye is an interesting character, but he's so unpleasant. And then no one else is a character at all, really.
Josh, have you ever walked into a crowded room and said, Popeye's here?
I have not, but I bet you would like to do that.
Goals for next year, right?
Yeah. David, you seen this movie before?
I had not. It was one of the many, many movies that I wanted to get to. Of course, I also had heard of it as like, one of the all-time great chase sequences. And I'm glad I'm finally getting to it.
That's a ringing endorsement. So
that's about all
I
it's
know. I'm
getting.
surprised that like Dave, when you were playing with like Hot Wheels when you were 4 years old, your mom wasn't like, "You got to watch The French Connection, David."
Yeah. I was never into cars, even as a kid. I just never cared about cars.
What did you care about as a kid?
Transformers.
Transformers
are cars. Yeah.
No, I like them as robots. I actually, that's actually interesting because I like the Transformer that turns into a gun and the one that turns into a cassette tape, but I didn't really care about the ones that turned into cars.
So you only like 2 Transformers?
Yeah, basically. I like the one that turns into dinosaurs or whatever.
Oh yeah,
you must have had a very
Dinobots
childhood.
Yeah, so
yeah, I did.
Do you have a lot of friends growing up, Dave?
No, not at all.
The Transformers were his friends.
That's right. Yeah.
Jason, anything else you want to say about the background of this film?
Well, Josh, it was based on a book about, like we said, Eddie Egan and his partner, Sonny Grasso.
Who was also in the movie.
Right. And they both had kind of, especially Egan, like a real flourishing career as like an actor, just playing cops or that type of character. The book is by Robin Moore. It only came out in 1969. So what a run this guy was on.
Yeah, I mean, both of those real guys, because of this movie, seemingly were able to get this kind of foothold in Hollywood. And really better, from watching this film, better for both of these guys to be working on movies than to be on the police force, I think.
Quick question. Was Pauline Kael around to review Michael Bay's Transformers movie?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. I'm pretty sure she either was dead or retired by that point. So sadly, we missed out on those thoughts.
I think Dave's
Good for her.
I think Dave's going to create an AI Pauline Kael review for Transformers.
Let's not ever do that.
I agree with you, but I think Michael Bay would be all for it.
Yeah, sadly, that's true. Well, we'll come back and talk some more general thoughts on The French Connection. Welcome back to Awesome Movie Year. In this episode of our season on the films of 1971, we are talking about Best Picture winner, The French Connection. And I feel like we've really gotten into a lot about this movie already. But Jason, I think like maybe you're the most enthused among us about this film. So is there any other particular favorite aspect that we haven't covered?
I mean, when we talk about Dog Day Afternoon, we talked about the actual vibe that it captured of the city. And I feel like this really captured just how broke down and like corrupt and terrible things were for so many people in New York. So to me, it was a combination of the three things, like the technical wizardry, which I think Friedkin even escalates. Thanks to you guys, I can say that, because you guys implored me to watch Sorcerer. I think that's an even higher level of technical wizardry, right? But like there are things he does like where you would expect like Popeye's running. There's a lot of running, Josh. Tom Cruise would love to remake this movie.
Yeah.
Like there's plenty of running, but there's plenty of running after suspects. And there are times where you think you're going to hear tense background music and all you hear is like panting, right? I think the sound design was definitely something that stuck out to me in this movie as really expertly crafted. So the craftsmanship on an entire level, but I also think like I said, Le Samurai to this, that's the blueprint for how to do like the new Hollywood crime movie, if you want, and everything. I don't know if you would even say up to today, but like the film festival style crime movie, I still think like we covered A Most Violent Year recently. That's all stuff that's like really kind of influenced by these two movies.
Yeah, Most Violent Year clearly influenced by this and takes place like a decade later or whatever, but in this similar period of New York City as just this cesspool, really, and they're not shying away from it here. And I mean, even in the background details, like not only like just the background of various shots where you can see how grimy things are, but like things that come up in their investigation. You know, at one point, Popeye and his partner, they're sitting, having kind of this like stakeout of the car that they are confident is full of drugs, and they're waiting to see who picks it up, right? And what happens is instead just a bunch of unrelated like car thieves show up because they're going to chop the car for parts. I mean, that's just what happens if you leave your car on the street in New York City overnight, is that this is what is going to happen to it or whatever. Or at one point, they're just like showing up to some horrific car accident that you think, who are these people? And they're nobody. They're just people who got in a terrible car accident because that's what happens.
And what happens in that scene? Popeye and the FBI agent just almost get into fisticuffs there.
Right. I mean, and Popeye is always so callous. I mean, I think that's part of the thing with him. I mean, not only is he actively, harassing Black people in a bar or whatever, but I think, as you alluded to, like, one of the real sort of revealing things about his characters, in the final shootout where he accidentally like kills that FBI agent, and Roy Scheider is like, you killed this guy. He doesn't even mention anything about that. He doesn't even blame.
He just says the Frenchman's here and I'm going to find him.
Right. All he is focused on is like, I got to go get this other guy. He doesn't say sorry. He doesn't even say like, he shouldn't have been standing there. Nothing. And I mean, I think that's a reflection of the city.
Right. Josh, I wanted to go back to what you said, because he does like shake down the black bar.
Right.
And I think that's where maybe a lot of like, obviously he said what he said and that's the focus of it. But I feel like he would shake down any bar at this point in time.
I mean, but you don't see him doing that. And that's
a choice
of the
film. That Friedkin and Robin Moore and Tiedemann made. And did they do that because we're saying this guy's racist, or was it just accepted at the time? Like, the Black guy always dies first in the horror movie, right? Like, oh, we're going to go to low-level criminals, so obviously they have to be Black because it's 1970, right? Like, I'm just trying to get to like the bigger issue. Like, why is this? Why couldn't have that been a white bar or a mixed bar or anything like that?
Well, I think it's a combination of things. Like, you're right, as a movie cliche, that is, you watch movies from this era, and if there's characters who are going to like a criminal area or whatever, it's more likely that
it's most likely a Black neighborhood.
That's true. That's true. On the other hand, I think you mentioned this is a choice of Tiedemann, the screenwriter, and Friedkin, sure, but of Robin Moore, who wrote a book, which, I mean, if we want to give Robin Moore enough credit as a journalist, is true, And so if it's in Robin Moore's book, it's because that's what really happened. So I think absolutely this is something where, yes, it's a movie trope, but it's also probably the way that Eddie Egan really operated. And if he could go to a bar full of Black people and hassle them, and then that also was a way for him to, make some arrests or whatever, it was probably a double bone. It was a win-win for him.
But is there another side to that? Is that like, hey, he's assigned to narcotics and they know this is maybe this bar is a hotbed for that? I mean, like I said, there is an undercover Black officer in this bar working that bar. So like you're saying, if this was based on truth, is that like what was assigned to Eddie Egan? Like, we know this is a bar where a lot of stuff goes down and we want you casing it off.
I mean, I feel like you're trying to make excuses for this guy.
I'm not making any excuses. I'm not defending anybody. I'm just having a conversation. That's all I'm doing.
I mean, I think it is also a conscious choice on the part of the movie, that the movie is not just going with easy cliches, that I want to give the filmmakers credit, even if Eddie Egan himself is oblivious, that the filmmakers are showing you this guy is a bad guy. And part of the point of the movie is that these are all bad guys. Nobody is good here. It's the moral ambiguity here. Everything is a cesspool. Nobody is clean. Nobody is doing the right thing. And that's part of it.
If he's such a bad guy, Josh, why is he so beloved in American folklore? Obviously, we know there's a sequel.
Oh, really? Bad people are beloved in American folklore?
There was a TV show about him. I'm just saying, Josh, why, Josh? Why?
Yeah, well, I think your early discussion of our current political landscape might have answered some of those questions.
Can I interject here real quick? On the poster, it says Doyle is bad news, but a good cop.
Right.
You could be a good cop and like bad lieutenant or whatever, right? But he was not a good cop, right? But there are plenty of
by Doyle.
But again, that's another kind of comparison point you can make to this, right?
Yeah.
right? You could be a bad person and a good cop, I think, right? Like
I guess
Martin Freeman in
like
the show that me and your mom watched, Josh. So not together.
Oh,
the responder or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that is certainly a thing, and that's a hallmark of plenty of cop shows and movies where he's a bad person, but he gets the job done or whatever. And I mean, whether or not the filmmakers have any say over what the tagline on the poster was, which we know that often they don't. I don't like, again, I come back to the idea that like, it really, if you're unsure about what the message of this movie is, and part of what to me was a little frustrating was that the real message of the movie comes across only in those final title cards, where you realize like, oh, right, nothing was accomplished here. And
I mean, they did get the heroin off the street and killed a few of the drug dealers and got one in jail. So you can't say nothing was accomplished.
I'll be honest with you guys, as like a kind of devil's advocate thing, I was uncertain of whether or not this movie thought he was a bad guy.
Like, that's what I'm saying.
I really am not sure.
But did you think he was a bad guy?
Yeah, of course, but that's a person living in 2025. I don't know if people in 1971 watched this movie and was like, this guy's a piece of shit.
I don't think they did, because he won Best Actor and made so much money. I mean, Dirty Harry was similar at this time. I just feel like they felt like John Wayne played bad guys, but he was an American hero too, right?
Sure.
I mean, you keep coming back to the idea that he won Best Actor, and like, I don't think it has anything, like, again, being a good actor, like giving a good performance as a bad person is often awarded. Like, I don't think that's an indication that people thought this was a good guy. And in the reviews that I read, I think there's definite understanding that this character is not a good person. So,
well, can we talk about what's really important here, Josh? In the opening scene, he's wearing a Santa suit undercover. So this counts as a Christmas movie. That's not a Christmas movie.
That's good. Well, I think, Christmas, by the time this is out, Christmas is a few weeks old, but we could have just shifted this one and had that instead of Santa Claus the movie. But, we would have missed the joy of Santa Claus the movie this year. So that's important.
Right.
But
no, but I always am on the lookout for movies that take place at Christmas time that aren't Christmas movies. So that was fun for me to see.
Yeah, I guess maybe that's an indicator that it's Christmas time at the beginning of the movie, but we don't see any other. I mean, you think in New York, if it was Christmas time, we'd see a lot of decorations,
trees, lights.
We don't see any of that. So maybe it's unclear like how long this investigation goes on. So maybe it's, a significant amount of time later by the time most of the other action occurs.
Josh, was Al Pacino a bad guy in Dog Day Afternoon?
I think Al Pacino in Dog Day Afternoon is more sympathetic. And even though he's robbing a bank and holding people hostage, and I mean, there's moral ambiguity there. And there is, again, there's layers to Popeye. I mean, that's why he's the only really interesting character in the movie, because, I mean, he's loyal to his partner and he is very, very dedicated to this investigation, even though you may wonder whether the investigation is worth pursuing, and he has instincts when he says these guys are doing this huge drug deal, and he's right. So, I mean, there are elements there, but yeah, on the whole, no, I'll take Pacino's character in Dog Day Afternoon over Popeye Doyle.
I just think it's really interesting that you can look at a lot of characters from this time period and have this conversation about them. And I think that's one of the things that is fascinating about New York and New Hollywood.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not saying that Popeye being a bad person is a criticism of the movie necessarily.
No, it's just a point that we're having.
Yeah, I mean, my frustration is that there aren't other multi-layered characters in the cast.
I think that's a totally fair critique of it.
Yeah, and like, it would have been great to see a character on the other side of things who wouldn't have to be a good person, could also be a terrible person, but who we kind of, someone on the other side of things who we kind of learn something about. And
really maybe that could have been like the drug scientist who's checking the purity of it. We don't learn anything about it.
He seems really excited to check the purity of the drugs.
Yeah, and he's got he's like, this is grade A beef. Whoa, right. This is rocket injector fuel, right? Like, blast off, baby, right? He's got something, and he got away in the end somehow too. But now you got me thinking of these characters, and it kind of moves me to 76 with Travis Bickle, and maybe that's the kind of really the zenith of that type of morally kind of murky character.
Right. And you can say that Taxi Driver, which I haven't seen in a long time, but is a fascinating character study. And I think Travis Bickle is a great example of what you were just talking about, Jason, where even more so, it's like, obviously Travis Bickle is a very bad guy and not a role model, but tons of people watch that movie and think Travis Bickle is great and they want him as their role model. And that is what's wrong with America.
I mean, yeah. And he, at the end of the, I'm going to spoil Taxi Driver if you've never seen it now. So at the end of the movie, he becomes a hero.
Right, but in a very like hollow.
Right, the media makes him a hero out of a situation where at first he was going to murder a politician.
Right, and I think that's part of the message of the movie that we tend to elevate these people, and they're horrible people, and Popeye Doyle too. Obviously, Eddie Egan, the real guy here, became a hero. Right, he had multiple movies made about his life. There was, this book about him. I'm sure at the time The French Connection came out, got plenty of press coverage along with Gene Hackman and Roy Scheider, because that was a big thing about him. So he was elevated in the same way that Travis Bickle was elevated.
So Josh, you've talked about, and I understand your criticism, but what stood out to you? I mean, I do go back to just the technical brilliance of Friedkin and his team on this thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that car chase sequence is brilliant. And I remembered the car chase from the first time I watched this movie. I hadn't remembered that subway sort of, I don't know if you really call it a chase, but almost this like little
the
dance.
cat and mouse.
Yeah, the cat and mouse game where the French drug dealer, he knows that Popeye is following him, and Popeye knows that he knows that he's being followed, and they're both kind of doing this little dance to see who can be the quickest and the trickiest, so that either he can get away or Popeye can stay on his tail, and ultimately he gets away. And but that's really well done because it just keeps going. And every time you think, okay, they both got on the subway, like, wait, no, one got off. Wait, the other got off. Wait, they're back on. They're back off. And it's really well crafted. I mean, the editing there is really good. So the car chase is great, but that was a sequence this time watching it where I was like, wow, this is really impressive.
I really like the button on that too, because the bad guy, the French guy, gets away. And where is he going? To a completely different city to have a 10-minute meeting to finalize this drug deal.
Right. That's what they do. They're so meticulous about being careful that they fly to Washington, D.C. just so that they can have this brief meeting between him and the American guy who's buying the drugs. And then they fly back. And as careful as they are, of course, they do get caught in the end.
I might have mentioned this when we covered the film I'm about to reference, but really great quote from William Friedkin about his style on this. He says, "After I saw Z, the Costa Gavras movie, I realized how I could shoot The French Connection because he shot Z like a documentary. It was a fiction film, but it was made like it was actually happening. Like the camera didn't know what was going to happen next. And that is an induced technique. It looks like he just happened upon the scene and captured it, captured what was going on as you do in a documentary. My first films were documentaries too, so I understood what he was doing, but I never thought you could do that in a feature at that time until I saw Z."
Yeah, I mean, we did cover Z, and I feel like not only that documentary style, which is key here, because I think there was one of the reviews, I didn't quote this part, but mentioned that like it almost looks like scenes in this movie look like they would be the background of another movie or like the setup to another movie or something like that. It's really just like capturing it in that naturalistic way. But the whole ending with the title cards is also such a key element of Z, the idea that all these people who were part of this, corrupt authoritarian regime basically got away. And here we have that same thing about all of these drug dealers.
Everyone is a son of a bitch,
Josh. So true. So, I mean, are there any other performances in this movie that stood out to you?
I mean, they all felt kind of real, which I liked. But I mean, like you said, it's the Popeye Doyle show with Roy Scheider behind him. I felt it very interesting when I, looking up because William Friedkin didn't want Gene Hackman in this role, So,
right.
Paul Newman, which Paul Newman can do anything. He would have been great. Jackie Gleason, I have no idea how that would have turned out. We said Peter Doyle turned it down. Jimmy Breslin, who is the columnist from the New York, the classic New York columnist. Like, I don't know why he would have been like that, well, like why he would have chosen that. But yeah, some really interesting things there. So.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that Friedkin realized once they started making the movie that Hackman was the right choice, because he's great in this, and I think he has that perfect gritty quality. I mean, Paul Newman is almost like too handsome to play this part, right? You want Popeye Doyle to be kind of dirtbag looking, I think, and Hackman gets that while also showing the charisma. I mean, the one thing we also see about Popeye Doyle is he's also very popular with the ladies, and you can kind of understand that he has that charisma, and he probably trades on his, macho authority, and that is appealing to certain women or whatever. And I think if it's Paul Newman, you don't have to wonder why would he be appealing to the ladies, right? But Hackman has enough of that kind of scuzzy look here that it's an interesting dichotomy.
He is. The 70s is a real interesting time for Gene Hackman too, because he's ascending to be one of the biggest stars and best actors. And, this is the one he wins Best Actor for. But I think there are more layered things that he does in this decade.
Yeah, I mean, but this is something where to whatever point Popeye Doyle is like a layered character, I feel like a lot of it is Hackman's performance. It's not, it's in the writing a bit, and it's in the direction, but Hackman really gives you a sense of this guy as a human being more so than anyone else in the movie.
Do you, if you slept with him, would you handcuff him to his own bed, Josh?
I mean, I think he was handcuffed to the bed as part of the sexy times, not because she was like afraid of him or something, right?
Could it be a little of both?
I guess. I mean, one thing that we don't see is Popeye Doyle beating women. So, we can give him credit at least for that. He seems to treat the women, maybe not with respect, but at least, we don't
really see him. We don't ever see him disrespect a woman.
No. That's true. We see him pick up women, but we don't even really hear what he's saying, I think. And then we just see the aftermath of that. So,
yeah.
Hey, he's open-minded enough to be the one getting handcuffed during the sexy times rather than doing the handcuffing.
It takes a lot what Friedkin did to pull that off with those kind of snap zooms and moving focuses. Like, we're talking about that technique of like just verite style, but like it really came together.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not only is it documentary style, but it's also like, this is a movie about surveillance, and it looks almost like the camera is surveilling the characters at times. And so I think that plays into the paranoia of the story and things like that.
Yeah.
So should we rate this out of 5 racial slurs?
5 racial slurs? Only if you're going to say them.
No, I will not. Let's pick something else then. Jeez.
Okay. Yeah. Why don't we just do it out of 5 secret car compartments where you can hide drugs?
Yeah.
So I gave it 3.5. I mean, it's a really cool, interesting, tight movie. I think the criticisms you brought up are totally fair.
Yeah, I'm going to give it 3 secret compartments. I think it's a well-made film that I can't fully engage with for various reasons, but certainly worth seeing and an important landmark. So, Dave, how do you rate this?
I'm also going with 3. I think it's really well made, but it's also just not really what I was expecting out of it. And I wonder if maybe on a rewatch, I would enjoy it more. I also just wanted to mention one other quick point. I can't remember what movie it is, but in the opening of this, there's the guy walking around and he's got that long baguette. And there's a spoof movie where someone has a comically long baguette that's like double the length. I'm wondering if it's Naked Gun or something. But yeah, I just, when I saw that, I was like, oh man, that's where that's from.
I don't know that. I was thinking of Michael Clayton with Tom Wilkinson carrying around his bag full of baguettes.
He's got the, yeah, sure.
Which is probably, I mean, that's a movie that certainly would have been influenced by The French Connection. I would think so. So,
definitely.
What did you expect, Dave?
Just something a little bit more Best Picture worthy. I don't know. This just feels like an action movie. Like, that's really all I got out of it. Like, this is, Guy Ritchie movie number 3 of the year, or like any various, without the jokes, of course, Jason Statham or, any of these guys that we see do these action movies nowadays, like, Liam Neeson. This just feels like a regular standard run-of-the-mill action movie.
Yeah,
that's interesting. Do you think because it's 1971, they weren't used to that type of kind of
100%. I think this
feel?
kind of set the blueprint for that kind of thing, and it was something nobody had really seen, and certainly not at this level. I mean, there's no denying the filmmaking from William Friedkin, but essentially now I just see this as just a regular old action movie.
I mean, I think, again, it goes back to like it's thwarting the expectations for a movie. Like if this starred Jason Statham, it wouldn't end this way, or he wouldn't be willing to play a character that's this unpleasant. So I think it does challenge some of those ideas, which is why I think Pauline Kael is off base on it. But it doesn't feel like a best picture necessarily, or at least what we think of a best picture now, certainly. So we'll come back and talk about the legacy of The French Connection. Welcome back to Awesome Movie Year. In this episode of our season on the films of 1971, we are talking about Best Picture winner, The French Connection. And legacy-wise, again, this was a huge success. And so it had a sequel, French Connection 2, which I think none of us have seen, but is perhaps worth seeing, is directed by John Frankenheimer from 1975. Both Gene Hackman as Popeye Doyle and Fernando Rey, who plays the main French drug dealer villain, returned for that film. And it was a box office success. It was a critical success. I feel like it's been a bit forgotten now, but if I'd had more time this week, I would have been curious to watch it.
I'd like to see it too. It's interesting that there's no Roy Scheider in the second one. What I do know about that movie, Josh, and don't ask me how, is that a lovely Suzanne Summers has a topless scene in there.
All right. Well, yeah, I don't think despite the scuzziness of this movie, there were no naked ladies in this film, were there?
No, there were not. There was a butt that we saw, but that's okay. And hey, like we keep pointing out, we're all for any. We're equal opportunists. You want to show some donks? Go for it.
Yeah. It's always refreshing to see any of that, but none of that in this film. So good to know about Suzanne Summers.
Suzanne Summers is a bombshell back then.
Absolutely. So, I'm sure she looks gorgeous in that. And Jason, as you alluded to, there was also an attempt to make a Popeye Doyle TV series in 1986 starring Ed O'Neill as Popeye Doyle, and it did not go ahead, but the pilot was aired as a TV movie on NBC. And I think you can find, sort of VHS rips of it on YouTube, which that I'm sure is not good, but it might be an interesting artifact. I think years later, like maybe 20 years later or something, Ed O'Neill did do a short-lived cop show finally, but I don't know about him as Popeye Doyle.
I think he could. I mean, again, you can't play it like Gene Hackman. You got to just play it like you would play it.
Right. And I think they also soften him because if he's going to be the main character of an ongoing TV series. Yeah. But he does have the pork pie hat. I saw the photo and he's got the hat. So they got that down at least.
Pork pie.
Yeah. Would you, do you have any pork pie hats, Jason? I know you're a hat guy.
I have to no, I don't think I have a pork pie hat. Hey, if there's any listeners who want to send us a gift, maybe some pork pie hats for all of us.
Well, maybe just for Jason.
Except it doesn't look like now you just look like, you don't look like a cool 1970s cop. You just look like a shitty magician now. If you wear one of those, or like, oh, I'm going to goth night, or I'm steampunk, or whatever, right?
All right. Well, so no pork pie hats for Jason then, maybe.
Yeah.
We talked about that censorship. That was interesting. I don't know. I watched this on DVD, and so it does include that early scene where Popeye uses the N-word. And I guess, Jason, you said you watched a version that has that as well.
Yeah. I mean, I saw you're saying yours didn't have
No, mine did. It wasn't. Yeah. I got a DVD, and I think if you get it on DVD or Blu-ray or 4K or whatever, now it's fully intact. But the digital release, I know it got a lot of attention because it was on the Criterion channel a couple years ago. And that version, it wasn't Criterion that censored it, but whoever it is, the current rights holder, their digital version that they were providing to Criterion or providing to rental outlets has that censored. So I think
it's so stupid.
It is.
You know, like that one line doesn't change your opinion of this character.
No, I mean, and I think again, it does a disservice to the movie because it's in there for a reason. It's in there to show you who this guy is. And just like we shouldn't be censoring older films that have other, we talked about this like when we did our episode on Gone with the Wind, like it's important to have context. It's important to understand where this comes from, but that doesn't mean you should delete it. So I don't know if that was changed. It was a couple years ago that got a lot of attention. And if you rent this, Dave, I don't know how you watch the film, if you rented it online or if you have a DVD, but I don't know if you rent it now, if that's in there or not.
Yeah, I didn't see that. I don't remember hearing that line. And it was on Amazon Prime. So
yeah. So maybe that is still the case. It's early after they kind of bust up that guy at the very beginning where they have to chase him and he has a knife and Roy Scheider gets cut and they're back at the police station. And, he talks about how he got hurt and Popeye says, never trust the N-word. And that's where it is. So
no, I don't remember that.
Yeah. So that is, I guess, still the case, but you can find it otherwise if you get the physical media version. So we've talked about a lot of the major people involved in this film already. William Friedkin, we did an episode on Cruising. And, Jason, you mentioned his run here in the 70s and 80s, which was kind of his heyday, The Exorcist and Sorcerer. And another movie, I know we're going to get to your car chase list, but do you have To Live and Die in L.A. on there?
I still haven't seen To Live and Die in L.A. That's got to be my next Friedkin on there.
I have, and it is very French Connection-y. I mean, William Peterson's character is a total dirtbag. And to me, excessively so. I was disappointed in that film. It does have a cool freeway car chase. Although by that point, that movie, I think, is from 1985. And for me watching it, it felt like Friedkin was like, Michael Mann is taking my spot. I need to make a Michael Mann movie. And it's good, but I definitely don't like it as much as a lot of people do.
Michael Mann. You got one more in you, Michael Mann. I hope you do, buddy.
He's supposed to be making Heat 2. We'll see how that goes. Yeah.
Do you want my list, Josh, of the
go for it. What is? I didn't make a list, so let's hear yours.
Bullet.
Yeah.
French Connection. Born, the first Born Identity.
Totally. I was thinking of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Ronin, which is not a great movie, but that car chase is incredible. And then one of the Mission Impossibles, not this last one, but maybe the one before, had the amazing car chase in it.
Is it the one where he's like tied to Haley Atwell?
I think so. I think that was a really cool one.
Yeah, that was a good one. I mean, there's probably more in that series, but that was you're right. Not the latest one, but the one before it, I think.
Yeah, part one. Yeah, that's the best part of that movie.
Yeah.
Those were 5 that I thought about right away.
Yeah, those are all good choices. I haven't seen Ronin. Ronin, directed by John Frankenheimer, director of French Connection 2. But otherwise, Bourne was the one that popped into my head. And I'm sure if I took time, I could think of some other ones, but nothing else off the top of my head. Do you have any thoughts on that, Dave?
I mean, Mad Max Fury Road is just a big, long chase.
That is true.
We're talking about Friedkin here, right? And we talked about Sorcerer, like this kind of usage of tension, and it's not car chases, but it's in vehicles transporting things. Like, just even ratchets it up even more in Sorcerer, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, and it depends on, like, you could even argue that the car chase in this movie isn't a car chase because, as we said, it's really him, like, following this train above him. He's not chasing another car. But
I think that's what maybe separates it, is that it's a different version of what you would expect.
Right. It is, and it adds to that tension because you're looking in both of those areas. So.
But what a run he had in the 70s, Sarah. Up till Cruising, I'd say, was probably, that run is where maybe, and he did do To Live and Die in L.A., did well. I really like Blue Chips. I know we've talked about that, but that's a really good basketball movie.
Yeah, I haven't seen that, but he did have a kind of resurgence toward the later part of his career. I like Bug a lot. I know that was kind of a divisive one. Killer Joe, which I haven't seen, and all the way through the
people love Killer Joe, Josh.
Yeah, I mean I think it was pretty kind of controversial because it's very explicit and graphic at the time that it was released. I'd be curious to see it. I believe it's another Tracy Letts. Is it not another Tracy Letts play like Bug is? I think it might be. But
well, I mean, I haven't seen it, but when you're talking about explicit, because he did Jade with Linda Fiorentino in that decade also. So, or not in that decade, in the '90s. So he's not shying away from things.
Right. And Jade was part of that big erotic thriller boom post Basic Instinct, which we probably talked about in our Basic Instinct episode, and was written by Joe Esterhaas. And Killer Joe is another Tracy Letts Play like bug. And so he was into that. His final film, The Caine Mutiny Court Martial, came out in 2023, I think actually a couple months after he passed away. So he was working all the way through up until the final moments.
That movie's good.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah. And I think that might be Lance Reddick's last performance too.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So it's it's a remake of a movie from the 50s that I think was based on a play. And it's literally like a 12 Angry Men, which he had also remade at one point in time, right? Which is a courtroom drama. Good film. I recommend that one.
Yeah, and I think his version of 12 Angry Men also has a following. It was on Criterion at one point recently.
Right. That's the Jack Lemmon one, right?
I think so. We've talked about Gene Hackman a few times in our episodes on Unforgiven and Bonnie and Clyde and Downhill Racer. Obviously, an amazing star, decades-long career. And maybe Welcome to Mooseport isn't good, but you got to give him credit for having decided to retire and stuck with it for the last, 20 years of his life.
Maybe that deserves a rewatch, but real fast.
It doesn't.
Going back to Friedkin, Josh, we didn't talk about all the operas he directed.
We may have mentioned that in our cruising episode, but, this is an awesome opera year. I don't know that we have a lot of expertise on that front, but that is cool that he did that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Hackman goes up there, top 5 greatest American actor of all time. I mean, we joke about Welcome to Mooseport. We've talked about him, obviously, Unforgiven, Downhill Racer. But do you want to throw a Hackman rec out there, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I probably mentioned these in our other episodes, but I just rewatched The Quick and the Dead, the Sam Raimi film, to write an article, and he's really, I mean, it's a riff on his role in Unforgiven, but he's great as the villain in that movie. He knows exactly the buttons to push. It's really fun performance. And I Never Sang for My Father, which is kind of an underrated 70s drama with him and Melvin Douglas, where they're father and son kind of they're estranged and trying to reconnect after the mother's death. A different kind of film, but an interesting one.
I recently watched Frankenstein, the Guillermo del Toro one, which Gene Hackman's not in, FYI.
Because he's dead.
But there is so much love, and I know how much Gene Hackman loved playing the blind man in Young Frankenstein. And it's nice to see him get to partake in that comedy as well.
Yeah, he's great. And when at one point several years ago, I did a whole thing on my blog of Frankenstein movies and then did my picks for the best ofs in all the various Frankenstein aspects. And he was definitely the best blind man, including the serious versions.
Man, this guy, Dave, what can Josh not do as a writer?
Amazing.
Really, these articles, that's such a crazy article. Like, your dream cast, you're picking your Frankenstein all-star cast from all the movies. That's wild.
Yeah, well, I don't know if they would have all combined to be the best movie together, but just the best versions of each kind of thing from the various Frankenstein movies that I watched at the time.
Well, Josh, I am hereby nominating Roy Scheider into the Awesome Movie Year Hall of Fame now that we've covered Jaws and all that jazz and this film, and maybe more with him, but we've talked about him, and I feel like he's got to go in.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously much more prominent in those other movies and does a lot more, but certainly he is great. And I don't think we've talked about him in any other episodes besides those. Unlike Hackman, who was really, a major star up until the end, Scheider ended up in a lot of shitty B movies toward the end of his career and TV guest appearances and stuff. And so he fell off a bit. But great actor who does exactly what he needs to do here, which is not a whole
lot. The other Gene Hackman one I would say is, of course, Royal Tenenbaums, if you want to see the comedic side of him. Tony Lo Bianco, Josh, this guy has an Obie Award for an interesting sounding play, Yanks 3, Detroit 0, Top of the 7. And he was in The 7-Ups, which is another 70s essential crime film, and The Honeymoon Killers.
Yeah, he also was nominated for a Tony, and he plays the American counterpart of the drug deal here. Fernando Rey plays the main French drug dealer, and he had a massive career from the 1930s all the way through the 90s, known for working with Luis Buñuel. But I mean, in the US, this was one of his best known roles. And again, he was him and Hackman were the only ones to show up for the sequel.
Philippe D'Antoni, the producer of this film, said of Fernando Rey, he called him the last of the Continentals.
He does have that suave kind of old world style to him, which I think is important for this movie, because you see this guy and you don't expect he's a drug dealer necessarily, but he's got that elegance to him that is the contrast with Popeye Doyle that I think is good for the movie.
Yeah.
Ernest Tideman, the screenwriter, mainly known as the creator of Shaft. He wrote a bunch
Shut your mouth.
Wrote a bunch of Shaft novels. And
you didn't take the bait, bro.
I'm just talking about Shaft.
Thank you, Josh.
Also wrote the first Shaft movies, handful of other screenplay credits, but mainly known as a novelist. Robin Moore, the author of the book, another very prolific writer of nonfiction books, true crime books, military nonfiction. Later in his career, wrote a book about the capturing of Osama bin Laden that was false. So that's an
yeah. I mean, he's got so many books, but he's also been, he was arrested for tax evasion and
he lived a life.
Co-wrote the lyrics to the Ballad of the Green Berets, but also wrote The Happy Hooker, my own story. Too quickly, Josh, Bill Hickman, the stunt coordinator, was also the stunt coordinator for Bullet. So this guy knows how to build a chase sequence, huh?
Absolutely. I mean, it makes sense that you would turn to someone like that when you're trying to craft a really fascinating car chase. We talked about, Eddie Egan and Sonny Grosso, the real life cops, both of whom appear in this film and did go on to film and TV careers. Eddie Egan as an actor, he was in various film and TV roles through the 1980s. There is at least one other film, and I know, Jason, that you're a big Robert Duvall fan. I imagine you haven't seen Badge 373 from 1973, which is obscure, but it was another film based on Eddie Egan's life. So curious, how do you think Robert Duvall would fare as this kind of character?
I think Robert Duvall can play anything at any point in time in any film ever. I mean, again, go look at the outfit. And am I wrong? Isn't Duvall the co-star in, is it Bullet or I'm confusing Bullet and Dirty Harry, but I think he's one of the main support. I think it's Bullet. He's the main support.
Could be. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen it in a long time. So, yeah. He is in Bullet. He plays a cab driver in Bullet. Looks like maybe not the main support, but you are correct.
Oh yeah, it's like on the come up, bro.
Right, exactly. And then so Sonny Grosso, while Eddie Egan became an actor, Sonny Grosso mainly became a producer on cop movies and TV shows, including Kojak and Beretta. So again, better to have these guys in Hollywood than on the police force, I think.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say about the legacy of this film, Jason?
Did you know there was a sequel called The French Connection 2?
I think we covered that. We really got a lot in here. So
I got nothing else then.
That is The French Connection. And that is this episode of Awesome Movie Year. You can surveil us online and on social media.
That's something I want no part of. I'm Jason Harris Comedy, or Jay Harris Comedy on all the things. Go for Jason on Letterboxd, currently the number 3 seed in the college football playoff. Not true at all. We're on awesomemovieyear.com, Awesome Movie Year on Facebook and Instagram.
You can check out some old stuff from me, including my very old thoughts on The French Connection at joshbellhateseverything.com. I'm at Josh Bell Hates Everything on Facebook, at Signal Bleed on Blue Sky, and on Letterboxd. And if you watch this movie or any of the movies that we talk about on the show, and you are on Letterboxd too, tag your review Awesome Movie Year. We would love to know what you think. And check out our producer David Rosen's awesome podcast, Piecing It Together.
Check out Piecing It Together wherever you listen to podcasts, and follow us on social media at Piecing Pod.
Jason, what's in our next episode?
Well, it's Dave's pick, isn't it?
It sure is, Dave. What did you pick?
Yeah, it's my pick, and I'm excited to get into some great exploitation B-movie craziness with The Corpse Grinders.
So tune in next time for The Corpse Grinders, and thanks for listening to Awesome Movie Year.
Thank you for listening to Awesome Movie Year. Make sure to follow Awesome Movie Year on Facebook, at Awesome Movie Pod on Twitter, and at Awesome Movie Year on Instagram. And if you like the show, review us and rate us with 5 stars on Apple Podcasts.
an All Points West production, produced by David Rosen in Las Vegas.